On this kind of glide path of spending, we would see in just a few years, I think, the federal debt exceeding where we were at the peak of the Second World War. Even if they manage to reduce, if the Republicans manage to push this number down, are we still ultimately looking at a US economy that's on a path to something in excess or well in excess of 100% of debt to GDP?
Yes, definitely. I think we're on that trend now. We saw the debt to GDP ratio nudge just above 100%, which of course is a symbolically worrying threshold in 2020. Not kind of put down that change at all. But I think interestingly, if you look not at the debt to GDP ratio, which is traditionally what we've looked at as the sign of a healthy economy and a strong financial position, but instead, if you look at the debt servicing to GDP ratio, so how much do the interest payments cost every year, actually that interest payment ratio is falling, and it was at about 1.6 prior to the crisis, and it's now hovering around 1.2, 1.3% by our projections for at least the next couple of years. And that just shows that interest rates are at rock bottom levels, and they're likely to stay there per the Fed's guidance for at least the next couple of years. So debt is rising, yes, but it's a lot more affordable than it was in the past. So it puts a lot less pressure, actually, on the public finances, at least, let's say, in the next 5 years.
Cailin, I'm a lot older than you, and that's either a good thing or a bad thing, but I remember the 70s as well. And if they let this genie out of the bottle and basically we do get some form of inflation, then those wonderful figures you mentioned about debt servicing costs, well, it's going to skyrocket as well. So I don't know if that's the best measure that we should be using to judge whether we have a sustainable long-term economy as well.
Well, I think it all comes down, and rightly so, to this question around inflation. How fast does it rise? And where is it coming from? Is it coming from kind of one-off factors, or is it a sustained rise? We're seeing housing costs, transport costs, and education costs, all the kind of bedrock items actually starting to rise as well. And this is the million-dollar question, or actually trillion-dollar question, that all U.S. economists are asking themselves. And we have different kind of previous presidential lead scholars who have different views on the idea. But at the moment, we're not seeing a lot of the sustained inflationary rise. It's a lot of kind of one-off factors that for the moment seem to be linked to this initial recovery from the crisis. But I would say the biggest risk to the forecast is, of course, that inflation heads on a different trajectory. And it's going to be the main thing that we see the Fed trying to grappling with over the course of the next 12 months.
Cailin, do we need a grown-up, non-partisan conversation about stimulus checks? There seems to be all kinds of data pointing to the fact that people are not getting back into the workforce and creating shortages because they feel they don't need to at the moment as well. Again, I'm no Republican, I'm no Democrat, but is there part of the Biden initiatives and stimulus so far that is preventing jobs coming back into, or people going back into the workforce and taking the jobs that are available? And as such, potentially a valid criticism from some Republican camps.
Yes, and I think we'll see a lot of that over the course of the next few months. So we're pricing in that we'll have a couple of months, probably even more, in terms of labor market shortages. And it's going to be partially the fact that we saw more resilience in household income. So they didn't have the same pressures on earnings or savings for a lot of particularly middle-income households during the crisis. Part of that was the stimulus checks, and part of it was expanded unemployment benefits. There are a couple of other factors, though, to mention that might be holding people back from coming back into the workforce. One is health concerns that are persistent, and we expect those to start to be worked out by the time we get to about the early fall as vaccination rates start to rise and we kind of adjust to this new normal. And then the second is a lot of people who may have had to drop out of the workforce to care for children or family members and who are unable to access care in those coming months and are now kind of at home, unable to rejoin. But I think by and large, it's definitely a concern. And I think one, amidst other factors, are going to hold people back from joining the labor force until I'd say around September, when I see that being kind of the turning point by and large. But to look at the gig economy, if that's just one example, and of course there's no perfect mismatch between workers in one sector of the economy and people looking to hire in construction or bioengineering, but there are still millions of Americans working gig or part-time work who would like a full-time job. So I think we're seeing a lot of factors playing into this very uncomfortable readjustment period.